This video is about having two parents as biologists. And actually, technically, neither of my parents is really a biologist. Like, my mom worked as environmental, I want to say she did a lot of environmental education. And in the beginning of her life, she did work as a biologist. She worked with oak. And my dad did mostly wildlife management. But a lot of their contributions were broadly associated with biology. But you could argue that the core of their work was not really in biology, it was in other fields. So they both, my dad basically came down to Costa Rica because he was like not happy in the States, and I don't blame him, when he was relatively young, and he worked for ACM, semester abroad program, and since then he just really wanted to return to Costa Rica. So he met my mom, and then they both got their master's thesis in Katia in Turrialba. And then my dad worked in basically Corcovado National Park. So I remember reading books about Corcovado where he was like actually mentioned in the book. I saw Chris Bond in the field, which was kind of funny. So I grew up like hearing about my grandfather in my chemistry lectures, and then reading about my dad's name and everybody mentioning my dad's name on a constant basis. And I think he worked with larger species of mammals for a while, but he just then changed to scarlet macaws because he spent quite a lot of time going to this reserve called Carara in the Central Pacific of Costa Rica, and that this is really the organism that he studied most of his later years. The population of scarlet macaws in Costa Rica, and he wanted to increase the populations, and there was like poaching by the town, so it was a perfect wildlife, with a perfect species of charismatic fauna that's being chased out by poachers. Then my mom like also did her thesis in Katia with my dad, but she basically worked. She did a management plan. My dad did a management plan for Chiripo as it was about to become a national park, and then she did research with oaks, and then she worked a lot to environmental education. She also, like, when she was interested in forestry, she actually visited Corvallis, Oregon, where I did my master's thesis, and I think a lot of the memories from that place when I was 4 years old affected me, because I ended up living there for 3 years. So, I mean, as a kid, I always remembered the sound of the ocean, the wilderness, the animals and the plants, just being in the forest with them, and just my parents telling me, hey, be very quiet. And then we would see a group of peccaries walking by. And I remember like all these images of like the forests in different parts of Costa Rica, like the forests in La Selva full of frogs, and seeing like red and blue poison dart frogs in La Selva, then a lot of snakes, then seeing the other poison dart frog, the green and black, in Limon. Like those memories really affected me, because I always like cherish those memories. I also remember seeing the riverbeds of the dry forest, and they just really created an impact on me. Just the the beauty of the riverbeds, full of the large trees and all the species that it had, and the snakes, the tailed lizards, the skinks in Nancita National Park, since we then went there when we were very young. I remember a birthday that my sister had. I think she was like turning 2 or 3, and we were in Santa Rosa, and then we went to Playa Naranjo when there was nobody. I was probably like 5. I still have this memory. And when I was in Playa Naranjo, I remember seeing a shark, and I was so excited. My parents told me they saw a shark in the mangrove that's in the way to the to Witch's Rock, to the main building from the campsite that's to the north, which is less inhabited. I remember also going to Cerro de la Muerte, to the highlands of Costa Rica, and then my parents working with species, my mom doing species with research with oaks, and my dad with rats. But I remember very clearly, even as a kid, the mouse traps that he used, which are metallic and have like a certain shape. They're not the other ones that snap. And I remember very well just a lot of the trips that we would take, just having like a coyote. I forgot his name in our house for a while, and then I think there was a cat, there was an alligator, because my dad would take it away from poachers and try to return it to the field. I really remember Palo Verde when I went there as a kid, and just spending time in those places where the horses would go and drink, the bebederos, and then it was just